Thank you everyone who's viewing my presentation. My name is Matt Pidell. This is the community asset mapping of Equality Charter Middle School where I teach and where I've been observing. The physical condition of the classrooms, building, and educational setting. Our schools set in the Eastern Bronx. As many know, New York City schools tend to be set in buildings that are very old and in need of updates. In my classroom, floors are dirty, there's a floorboard falling off the wall under the smartboard, and the climate control is done school-wide, resulting in drastic changes in classroom temperature from not only day to day, but period to period. Those windows go open and closed, open and closed. The rooms are divided by folding walls that can make a hallway of small classrooms or a long conference room where the walls are folded open. The scholars regularly break the desks and chairs. I have many that wobble. I don't blame the school for not providing them. They were all new this year. The scholars figured that one out on their own. The building overall is in good condition, though updates on furniture are done frequently as scholars go through outbursts that are common during puberty. That's probably the most kind way I can put it. The amount of furniture that is ruined regularly is incredible to me. The scholars have the most up-to-date technology with Chromebooks, smart boards, and web-based portals for all homework and monitoring of grades. That's done through Teacherease, which is a website. Different schools use different programs. The physical appearances of students. Okay, so the scholars at Equality Charter School, they wear uniforms every day. These consist of blue equality polos, black pants, black shoes, and belts. The scholars generally appear to be dressed for success thanks to the dress code. Apparent emotional and physical state of students and instructional personnel. The apparent emotional and physical state of students and instructional staff varies based upon economic status, as we have discussed. Scholars whose parents are involved in their lives and hold education as a high priority are happy to do the work and express urgency that their grades be pleasing to their parents. They are regularly happy and cooperative. I attest this to having a clear expectation set by parents. The scholars know how to make their parents happy and therefore are happy themselves. Scholars who do not have the same support system of financial stability and parental availability often struggle both emotionally and physically. Scholars who do not have healthy examples set for them can come to school unhealthy, malnourished, or obese. Mental health is also a concern for these scholars. Many experience outbursts of anger that they do not know how to cope with. I have been struck by 3 scholars just this month, honestly within the last 2 weeks, when they're in an angry fit. Instructional personnel are too affected by their social economic status. I observed that the executive director of the school, our take on a superintendent, is quite healthy both mentally and physically. She's a Harvard grad and quite a pleasant and motivating individual. However, I have met staff members who suffer from extreme anxiety and mental health issues simultaneously while experiencing a lack of financial or family support. The family unit is so important even to adults. Knowledge about the amount of poverty in the school and your student's background. There are about 1,000 students in our school system. 78% of our scholars receive free or reduced lunch, 69% are black, 27% Hispanic, 4% of other, mostly Caucasian, 49% male, 51% female. The presence of and condition of textbooks and resources materials available. We have a brand new library in our school. It's a beautiful thing. The books are all in great condition. There are textbooks available for students that are all brand new. However, we are not a textbook school. I make all of my own materials. The school will buy resources if I ask. The style of interactions between the instructor and students. At Equality Charter School, we use PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports. With PBIS, we recognize positive behaviors as a way of reinforcing desirable behaviors rather than problem behaviors. We use language that is positive and uplifting. We practice, ratio of 4-to-1, in which we give 4 glow statements for every 1 grow. Because of my own research, I have chosen to use language that reflects a behavior or a choice being bad instead of a scholar. This helps scholars to separate undesirable behaviors from who they are as individuals. Whenever a scholar is angered by a teacher decision, we have meetings with school counselors in order to rebuild the relationship with the scholar so that they feel heard, and respected. Of course, there are teachers who lose sight of PBIS in times of great pressure. Our administrative team is very good at coaching and rebuilding relationships. Peer interactions. I've noticed an interesting relationship between scholars based upon cohort conduct. Scholars in cohorts where scholars do well in school form bonds of respect and friendship. They have a very positive and respectful class climate. Scholars in cohorts where scholars' behaviors are erratic and undesirable tend to be disruptive and defiant. Their grades also happen to be lower. They are unkind to each other in those cohorts. The scholars who do well in those cohorts mainly remain silent and ignore those who practice undesirable behaviors. Those who exhibit those behaviors tend to target each other in order to distract others from their own shortcomings. This is quite similar to the way bullies work. I believe that they do not understand their choices. This is why I reteach social skills daily. Instructional groupings, evidence of curriculum. Instructional groupings depend upon the type of instruction being done. At the beginning of each unit, scholars participate in a gallery walk and work in pairs to make inferences about what they will be learning about in the upcoming unit. Weekly, there are discussion appointments where scholars choose partners to work with for different inferential critical thinking and analysis questions based upon a text. They rotate through pairs responding to these questions by turning the questions around and inferencing about the passage. They reflect and then share their answers out to the class in whole group. Whole group instruction is done at the beginning of every class. Small group is done when working in writer's workshop or on group activities such as simulations or educational games. Independent work is done when writing, testing, quizzing, performance tasks, and skill assessments take place. Reading time is often done either independently or to assess individual skills or in heterogeneous groupings to help SWDs, students with disabilities, access material that is full of new vocabulary. All curriculum and resources are based upon the state standards for each grade, the current Lexile level of the scholars, and the goal Lexile level of the scholars for each grade level. I've broken my curriculum into 4 units for the year that align with the grading periods and allow for scholars to learn historical context in chronological order. I've had to use my interpersonal skills and academic mastery of history for my bachelor's degree to fight for this. Otherwise, scholars wouldn't understand their place in history or the process of development of humankind based upon the cause and effect relationships of all happenings in the history of our people. Unit 1, Introduction to History, the Skills of Being a Social Scientist. Unit 2, Civilizations and Kingdoms, the Stone Age, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Nubia, and Israel. Unit 3, Belief Systems, is India and China. And Unit 4, Democracies, Greece and Rome. In block periods, I teach lessons about Native Americans so that scholars learn about the Western and Eastern world. Also, all curriculum for all classes are available online on the Google Drive, also on the school website, which I didn't put there, but it's true. Arrangement of the rooms. All classrooms include the following: 3 large whiteboards, 26 desks, a resource center for conferencing, a resource area with materials available for scholar use, 2 teacher desks and computers, smartboards, cabinets of resources, a wall of windows to the outside. I change the arrangement of my classroom based upon the lessons. Sometimes desks are in rows, sometimes they're in groups of 6, sometimes they're in pairs, sometimes they're in 2 circles for fishbowl. The final arrangement I use is a stadium-like double-layered U for teacher-centered lessons or gallery walk days. The last, so the U-shaped one, is the least used format because generally my lessons are all student-centered, not teacher-centered, except for a couple. All classrooms are organized differently based upon what is taught in each room. The art/Spanish teacher moves room to room with a cart of materials. The style of and condition of displays on school walls. Our school wall displays are updated regularly. All displays have borders. Many posters are placed on every hallway wall with inspirational quotes, most of which are by Black or Hispanic community leaders. Currently, my hall bulletin boards are decorated with my students' cuneiform projects, where they invented their own form of cuneiform that only used nouns to show what they're most grateful for this holiday season. All work has a glow and a grow from me. We just got all new inspirational quote posters too, so everything looks fresh and nice. The climate or atmosphere in the room and building. The climate and atmosphere in the room in our building is centered around PBIS. As I explained before, our scholars feel very comfortable with us. The atmosphere is generally defined in each cohort by the students who make it up, as I previously explained. The environment and condition of the surrounding community. The environment and condition of the surrounding community is quite clean and family oriented. While the economic status of many people in Co op City is, may be low, the complexes surrounding the school are clean and well maintained. There is a wealth of shopping malls in the area, a church right next door, parks, and a short distance to Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Westchester for anything the scholars may need. What languages are spoken in the school and how that affects instruction. Many of the scholars speak Spanish. There is only one scholar in our school that is still at the beginning stages of learning English. There are many ELLs, but they mostly have linguistic skills that allow them to function socially. There's also an Arabic community in our school. The one scholar with beginning linguistic skills in English is one of the Arabic scholars. I translate everything for her into Arabic, but have learned that her literacy skills in Arabic are worse than they are in English, so have stopped translating texts of recent. She prefers to read in English. I use online work from ESOL.com for her. It is more engaging and less frustrating for her. This is a huge upside for ESOL students growing up in this generation. Whether parents play a large role in the school. Parents would play a much larger role in our school if the socioeconomic level of the scholars' families was higher. I say this because I previously taught in West Palm Beach, Florida. The parents of those scholars were far better off than the parents of my current scholars. Those parents were at the school daily. At Equality, it's much more rare to see parents in the building. Some parents are considered a security risk and aren't wanted on school grounds too frequently for the safety of our scholars. I know that this sounds harsh, but remember that our school is a school full of scholars who are not wealthy. They are primarily African American and Hispanic. 1 in every 3 African American men are incarcerated in their lifetime. This includes many of our parents. I have met quite a few and have seen some get very aggressive with our staff, and that's not a lie, including parent-teacher conference nights. Their children follow this pattern as well, as unfortunately. Like I said earlier, I've been punched 3 times in the last 2 weeks by scholars with explosive anger. A detailed description of the specific areas within the school and the community that feel safe or unsafe and why you think they feel this way. All right, so safe spots in my school would be the principal's office. Ms. Huza is a very warm and caring principal who speaks to everyone with respect and concern. Counselor's office. Our counselors have special relationships with our scholars. They have the kids begging to visit them every class period. Dean's office. Our deans are the father figures that many of our scholars never had. The scholars love seeing them and they beg to visit them every period. This is very true. And my classroom, I listen to scholars. They talk to me about everything. Too much sometimes. I'm very real with them about natural consequences and give them all the power to decide their destiny through choices. I know they feel comfortable because all of the things that they tell me and because they beg to come to my classroom for lunch. Unsafe. So I would say the streets. There are many dangerous people in the city. Last year there were bullet holes in my classroom window. Honestly, they brought in 5 bullets or guns last year. Luckily, they are double-plated windows, and the bullets fell right to the floor upon entry. The mall. Parents don't want their kids hanging out outdoors at night in the area for a reason. What are the school's highest priority learning goals for its students? Our instructional goal this year is critical thinking and analysis. We want our scholars to really understand what they learn and to be able to explain it in their own words so that they can prove their mastery of the grade level skills. What has been the recent history of the professional development in terms of context, processes, and content? It's content, processes, and context. Of recent, our professional development has been focused around a website called EdThena. Teachers post videos of their lessons, and other teachers view their documents and videos and post glows and grows. Our principal has been meeting with us to help us analyze each other's work in departments. We have focused on the instructional goal of critical thinking and analysis in each EdThena professional development. What evidence is there of links between student learning goals, state learning standards, and curricula? Mastery skills-based assessments. These are our tests. The standards are listed next to each question. Curriculum maps, scope and sequences, and lesson plans are all available to all staff members on a Google Drive and all list the Common Core State Standard Essential Question and Unit. All of this is listed openly for parents on course websites as well. What additional strategies might serve your students well, given their social backgrounds? One strategy that I used in Florida that would most definitely help all my students in the Bronx would be Parent Career Fridays. I had parents come in every Friday to talk about their job, the laws they had to follow, and how they affect the community. Scholars would associate school with their parents and adjust their conduct as well as their focus on classwork. Parents would also get more involved in supporting scholars with their work or verbally redirecting the scholars on their choices. This would help scholars to understand the importance of their choices. All right, data gathered and demographics for the school and the district. Okay, so Equality is privileged to support a diverse population of scholars. We have 78% of our scholars attending equality receive free or reduced price lunch. 69% of our scholars are black, 27% Hispanic, 4% other, 49% male, 51% female. At entry, many new scholars test below grade level standards established by the state. 77% below grade level in math, 81% below grade level in English language arts. Percent of scholars with disabilities. Equality has 23% scholars with disabilities. New York City is only at 19%. Our district's only 18%. Charter school average in New York City is only 17%. And charters in the United States average is only 8%. However, our scores are better. Okay, so equality's region scores, equality versus local districts. All right, so our scholars get 80% on algebra compared to the district's 32, 68% on algebra 2 and trig compared to the district's 25. On global, 56% versus the district's 44. On geometry, 30% versus the district's 24. On living environment, we get 71% as opposed to 56%. And on ELA, we get 78% as opposed to the 70%. And that means passing. All right. In both math and English language arts, we continue to surpass our local district 11 in the Bronx. And this year alone, we saw an outstanding 12% increase in ELA, validating that our literacy program is working. Scholars who are proficient in math, equality, were at 23% versus the Bronx's 18%. Scholars who are proficient in English language arts, equality is 32% as opposed to the Bronx's 23%. I know these numbers don't sound impressive to you guys, but they're a big difference in the lives of these kids. Our mission at our school is to ensure each scholar reaches individual academic and personal success through a nurturing, scholar-centered approach. All right, neighborhood needs map. As a result of all this information, these are all of our needs. So unemployment. So many scholars at our school have parents who are unemployed or disabled. Gangs. You know, even my middle school scholars deal with gang violence. I have a scholar who lost his brother and his father due to gang violence this July. Broken families. 51% of all marriages today ended in divorce. This is prevalent in our school. Even more scholars have fathers in jail or parents who put them up for adoption at a young age. Many are raised by their grandparents or CPS, Child Protective Services. Truancy. There are a number of scholars who do not attend school when they should on a regular basis. The attendance requirements are low in charter schools. It also puts extra work on teachers to have to chase them down, get their parents to send them to school, and hopefully get them to do all their work. Slum housing. Some of my scholars have up to 10 siblings. There are neighboring slum communities that scholars travel from to attend in Co-op City, which is rather well kept. Graffiti everywhere. I'll just put it there. All right. There's some pretty nasty things written on my desks. Mental disability. Mental disability exists in both students and parents. I have a student with autism whose parents are both autistic, one of which is blind as well. Crime is prevalent in high needs communities and schools like equality, theft, guns, abuse, child abuse. Both mental and physical abuse is apparent in my school for students of low-income families. Welfare recipients. More than 3/4 of students at equality receive welfare. We accept everyone, especially those in need. Illiteracy. Illiteracy is hugely prevalent in our school amongst parents and students. Many don't speak or read English at all. So lead poisoning, I couldn't find anything about that, but in 2015 there was Legionnaire's disease outbreaks happened as a result of leaks of cooling towers in Co-op City. So there's no trace of lead poisoning though. Dropouts. In the Bronx, 28% of all students graduate high school. Our numbers are much, well, it should say higher. Thank God. That's the opposite of what it should say. All right. Community assets map. Businesses. Biggest mall complex in the Northeast. Schools. PS 160, the Walt Disney School, Equality Charter School. Churches. The Iglesia Evangelica de Co-op. Parks. I didn't write anything there because they don't have names. They're just kind of like yards for each of the buildings. Hospitals, New York Foundling Hospital, community college, there is none. Cultural groups, there's lots of Africans, Puerto Ricans, Caucasians, Jamaicans, Dominicans, Hispanics. Elderly, grandparents who raise their grandchildren in our school. Income, it's a Section 8 housing area. Youth, school groups, there's lots of them. They're just clubs. Labeled people, scholars labeled based on race and sexual orientation all the time. Artists, Queen Latifah is actually from Co-op City. Libraries is East Chester Library is the closest one. Block clubs, not any out of the school so far as I know. So that's that's the network that I have to work with there. Most of them are school based, and the church is big. So that would be my presentation of my CAM, my community asset map. If you guys have any questions or any comments, please leave them below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.